All right, folks, unfortunately, we do not have any bag alerts to start off the week. But who knows? We might have a bag alert or something crazy to happen by the middle to the end of the week. But we still got some things we have to talk about because the next 48 hours are going to be the most toughest moments for a lot of players, okay? Because there are going to be some players who their dreams are going to be crushed. There's going to be some players that they're going to be spared, and there's going to be some players that are going to be put in a different situation. So we have a lot to talk about in a little bit of time. This is probably going to be a short episode. I'm not going to keep this, long and drawn out. We've been putting out a lot of long episodes, so just want to keep this fairly short, and just to put something out, just to start off the week on the right foot. So, JuJu, signs with the Chiefs. NFL cuts start today, and then they're supposed to be due tomorrow at some point. Will there be more buyers and sellers? That's when Bagrodamus comes into play. Trent Williams is now threatening to hold out into the season if he does not get a bump in pay. And well, no, not yet, but are these receivers holdouts? Are they hurting the team more, or they're hurting the player more? We have that can be somewhat of a tricky situation to talk about, but we're going to talk about it though in early trade predictions. Okay, all of this and more, because we're going to go in some different places, but you got to follow me, okay? On the 28th episode of the Football Junkies podcast, that's right, we are almost to 30 episodes, okay? 2 episodes away from 30 episodes, and I cannot wait. I am your host, your GM, who currently is not on the team right now, who currently is taking interviews for assistant GM positions, who currently, right now, is looking at the draft 2 years in advance, because there's a left tackle that has definitely caught my eye. We got to talk about all of this and more, okay? All of this, because I am your Bagrodamus. I am the chief, the head of the table, the chief bag meteorologist, okay? All of these mighty titles and more. But most importantly, the biggest title of them all. I'm your host, Kale. Let's lock in. All right, folks, so let's just go into this, okay? I'm going to keep on saying this. This is going to be a relatively short episode. This isn't going to be anything long and drawn out. We've been putting out 30, 40, 45, and even 50-minute episodes lately, so I know you guys don't want to keep on hearing that. So, we're just going to keep things light, just to start the work week and school week off for those that are going back to school and whatnot. So let's just get into this news, okay? So former Patriots wide receiver, I can't even think right now. I don't know why. Maybe he's in the coffee or something. I don't know. Former Patriots receiver JuJu Smith-Schuster is returning to the Chiefs on a 1-year deal, vet minimum deal. Not a whole lot really to talk about with that. You're talking about a receiver who, definitely was cut from the Patriots, after getting somewhat of a big payday after winning the Super Bowl with the Chiefs. So for him to go back to the Chiefs definitely lets you know that they probably have caught word that a lengthy suspension is still going to come down for Rashid Rice in his off the field situation. So what better person to have on the field than someone with veteran presence who also is a good blocker and knows the system well, right? Not to mention, you don't have to give him a whole lot of money, right? So either way, it's a win-win situation. JuJu is able to, be on a playoff contending team that is able to, go somewhere. He could possibly win another Super Bowl and maybe get one more big payday, before he has to walk away. But nothing too extensive really to talk about with that. Now, I will say this is an early Bagrodamus prediction, and it just comes to mind when these things happen. I do feel like the Chiefs will be in the market for a receiver. I do. I don't think they're satisfied with the receivers that they have right now. they like Rashee Rice, but I think with him getting in trouble and with how that situation, panned out in itself, I wouldn't be surprised that if he's sitting down for, half of the season at least. I wouldn't be surprised. And so the Chiefs, they need to make sure that they have things in place just so that they, can stay competitive while at the same time, don't fall off offensively. So, that this is definitely somewhat of a depth type of signing. It isn't anything like earth shattering or anything like that. But let's talk about something that doesn't get talked about as much, but should get talked about as much. And cuts. Now, to some people, you probably pay it no mind. You probably think it's nothing really to talk about, but it is something to talk about because a lot of these players, undrafted free agents and, those different types of things, journeyman people who are trying to continue their NFL career, this is a tough time for them because, within these next 48 hours, that person on your team could be coming to you and say, hey, listen, do you have your iPad or playbook or, however they do things now. And, it's tough. It's tough because it's not really a guarantee that you're going to, stay on a roster and whatnot. It's hard. It is because every single thing that you do, right or wrong, is being judged, right? And, it's one of those things where basically, you better hope you don't get hurt because if you get hurt, that's time that you're going to have to miss. And by then, if you haven't shown a lot, in training camp and especially in the preseason, they'll just give you anybody else. So it's definitely a very tough situation, a tough moment for a lot of players who are in limbo, right? Because as much as we see the star players, you also have to have the day-to-day players as well. People that get elevated from the practice squad to the active roster, during game day, and you're, people who doesn't get as much attention as, the star receiver or the star pass rusher or the star quarterback or, the star offensive lineman or, whomever, right? And, I do feel like it is important that we highlight this because a lot of people say, oh no, they're just a bum. Oh no, they don't know. They shouldn't be in the league. But it's like, bro, it's competitive. It's very competitive. It's a very competitive league. It somewhat reminds me of that one scene in The Dark Knight when the Joker killed the dude, and basically he had two henchmen left, and the Joker said, okay, we're going to have tryouts, and he snapped a pool what was it, a pool table? No, not a pool table. He snapped the pool stick, and he basically just gave one piece to two people, and they basically had to fight over on who was going to join Joker's crew. Now, I'm not saying that's how it is with football, but that is essentially the mindset that is, that happens when it comes to training camp and preseason and all those different types of things. You were trying to outdo your teammate to get a roster spot. And if not a roster spot on this team, then on another team, right? That's basically what it is. That's a mindset for a lot of the players that that are somewhat in limbo. They think, okay, if I don't make it on this team, well then as long as my tape is good, maybe I'll have another opportunity somewhere else. And most of the times it does happen. But there are also times where it doesn't happen. And so, I would be wrong to say as a podcaster and as also as a fan, we have to be sensitive for the players that are getting cut. So, if you're one of those people that wants to be a noob and, wants to, put out things for clout or for clickbait, don't do it. Don't do it, dog. It's not worth it. Now, on to something a little bit more uplifting. Now that we've definitely addressed the most important thing out of this entire podcast, out of this entire episode, we got to talk about buyers and sellers. Yeah, buyers and sellers. And that's probably going to be the title for this episode because I thought about it a few weeks ago and I was like, we definitely do have to put out an episode before cutdowns and whatnot. So when we look at it, from a league-wide standpoint, there's not one roster that is like, oh, this is a perfect roster. There's no holes on the roster on both sides of the ball. Everything is great, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. It's not. It's not. Every roster has a hole. Now the question is, how big is the hole? Is it a hole where they need to get somebody immediately in order to patch it up? Or do they need to get 2 or 3 players to possibly, try to, somewhat stop the bleeding per se with whatever the situation is? And a lot of times these things happen, especially as the season progresses, because players get hurt, injuries happen, people get traded, all those different types of things, right? But at the same time, though, we do have to somewhat identify teams that will be more buyers and sellers, because a lot of times this is somewhat, in my mind, somewhat of a start to what could possibly be for the trade deadline, right? Because, and this is just a theory that I've somewhat come up with. A lot of times where if there's not a lot of activity going on as far as like trades and whatnot during the cut down time frame, that most likely translates to somewhat of a very minimal trade activity when it comes to the trade deadline later into the season, right? But if you see more activity, though, that's when you see a more robust, a more active trade deadline, which, I mean, let's be honest here. We all love the trade deadline because it's basically a day of nonstop, news from the minute you wake up to the minute that you go to sleep. It's just nothing but trades, 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 and trades. But, I think we do have to identify, just a few teams that will be both buyers, sellers, or maybe even both, honestly. So for me personally, I definitely do think teams like the Steelers will probably be buyers because they have, they still have a lot of pressing needs. And, I think they realize that, one of their strongest groups is now one of their weakest groups with the offensive line, because you have Troy Fautanu, who's hurt. You have Dylan Cook, who's going to be out for multiple weeks. You have Nate Herbig, who's out for the season with a torn rotator cuff. Broderick Jones is hurt, right? And who else? Who else? Is that it? I think that's it for the offensive line, right? Not to mention, they've been trying to find somewhat of a replacement for, for a receiver as well. So I do believe that they're going to be one of the teams that are going to be more active when it comes to buying than selling, because they don't have a whole lot to sell, right? And even if they do, it'll probably be for late round draft picks, right? And so, compared to a team that is, for instance, like the Texans could be a seller because why? They have over 7 receivers that are NFL caliber receivers, right? Because remember, they have Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods, Ben Skorank. I think that's his last name. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, your last name. Who was from the Rams but got traded over to the Texans, as well as Noah Brown, and I think there may be like 1 or 2 other people. Oh, and John Mechie. So you have all of those receivers, and mind you, they're not going to keep all of those receivers. They're just not. So somebody is going to be outside of that bubble. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they moved off of someone like a John Mechie, maybe possibly a Robert Woods and whatnot, because teams would love to have someone like a John Mechie, right? Teams would like to have somewhat of a Robert Wood, right? And then not to mention, you don't have to give up a whole lot of draft capital to get them. They're not carrying large cap hits, nor do they have large contracts. So either way, it's a win-win situation for both, for both parties, right? Compared to, for instance, what's a good team? The Cowboys, for instance. The Cowboys have to be buyers because they realize that the defensive line isn't their strong suit right now, nor is, their middle linebacker core and their secondary as well, with Deron Bland being out for 6 to 8 weeks, not 68 weeks, but 6 to 8 weeks, with a stress fracture. I can't even speak. I think it's the coffee. Stress fracture. Man, this is tough. Stress fracture. There we go. We did it. We did it. We get a golden star for it. Those that is a team that, they're going to have to be active. They're going to have to, because that defense is a little bit beat up. The defensive line is beat up. I don't know what they're doing for middle linebacker, and I don't know what they're going to do for their secondary, right? Especially for their corners. The only healthy one is Trevon Diggs, and even then, he's coming back from a torn ACL. So, you have a lot of things that you have to, factor in when it comes to buyers and sellers. You really do, because a lot of times teams this is when teams are going to be really active, right? This is when they're going to move off of certain players if they feel like, okay, yes, you're a great player, but we don't have a spot for you on this team. But guess what? We'll put you in a better situation where you can be competitive, where you can play, where you can be, on the field on Sundays, right? And then there are other situations where, they just have to be released just, altogether because, there's just no spots, or, they're just not playing well. And so that happens. And that's why you're going to have, to me, I feel like you're going to have more buyers than sellers, because there's still a lot of teams who they need, depth, on their offensive line, or they need it on their defensive line, or they need it at receiver, or running back, or tight end, or corner, or wherever the case may be, right? Compared to teams who are going to be basically, shipping off of players, just to get more draft picks and whatnot, which, sort of entails to another topic, but, we'll get there when we get there. But we do have to talk about the 49ers. Yes. I know we are tired of talking about the 49ers, but it is not that person that we are talking about. We are talking about Trent Williams this time, because apparently, according to Jeremy Fowler, he has reported that Trent Williams is willing to hold out into the season if the 49ers do not give him a bump in pay. This is what I will say. Pay the man. Simple as that. Pay the man, okay? This is someone who has significantly impacted not only the run game, but as well as the pass game since joining the 49ers, okay? As I said before, I think in the previous episode, once they got Trent Williams, they started to run the ball more on the left side, on his side, and they were doing it successfully. So that tells you the impact that Trent Williams has on that team. And mind you, no one can say, oh, well, he's just a system player and whatnot. No, because guess what? Trent Williams was doing the same thing when can't speak. It's definitely the coffee. When he was with Washington, he was doing the same thing. So again, this is what happens when you have a premier player at a position that is, important at left tackle. This is what happens. And so now the 49ers, if I'm John Lynch, I'm shifting all of my attention to Trent Williams, because he is more important in this ecosystem, in this equation, in order for them to win a championship, than Brandon Ayuk. I'm just being completely honest here. Hate me, love me, whatever the case may be, but that's just how I personally feel. Trent Williams is more valuable, because guess what? If you don't have Trent Williams on that field, Brock Purdy is going to get beat. He's going to get beat up, okay? Trent Williams is gatekeeping some of the best pass rushers, not only in that division, but in the entire league. And he has to be fairly compensated. I'm sorry. He's still, if not the best, the second best left tackle in the league right now. And even then, to any person that says that he's the second best left tackle, who's the first? Who's the first? Because in my mind, it's still Trent Williams, and it will always be Trent Williams, okay? So the 49ers already knew that once Christian Darrisaw was going to get his deal, Trent Williams was going to want more. You already knew that. So if you already knew that, as soon as it was announced, you should have called Trent and said, you know what? Let's come back to the table. Let's figure out how much more do you want? How much of a pay increase that you want. Because guess what? That's an easier deal to take and to mold and to restructure and to add on compared to Brandon Ayuk. And it shows. Because why? Brandon Ayuk has basically been having a hissy fit, almost like a 2-year-old child, Okay, I want this. Okay, that's not the toy that I want. Even though it is exactly the toy that he wants. Well, this one has too much dust. Well, this one has this little scrape. Well, this one doesn't have the right paint. This one has this. He's just nitpicking at every small little thing, and it's getting to a point where the 49ers just like, hey, to hell with it. We came back to the table for you. We bumped up our offer for you. We're trying to keep you here because we value you, but you are acting like you don't want to be here. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to prioritize somebody that does want to be here. And that's the mindset that John Lynch in the front office should have. Because why? He still has not signed the deal. We still don't know exactly what's going on. We really, even though there are there are insiders that have sources and whatnot, this is a come and go type of situation. It really is. One minute he's happy, he's around the team and he's talking to the players and blah blah blah. The next minute he's not there for 2 or 3 days and he looks like he doesn't want to be around the team. He looks like he's just stay away from me. All those different types of things. So again, focus on Trent Williams. Trent Williams is more valuable on that offense than Brandon Ayuk. You could go and you can make a late season trade for another receiver that could probably do the same thing that Brandon Ayuk does and not lose an inch of sleep off of it. I'm just saying it. Moving on to the to the next topic because I can talk about that for almost an hour and I'm just not. But I will say this: with all of the friction that has happened lately with the receiver holdouts, I think it is a question that does need to be asked. Are these holdouts hurting the team or the player more? And you have to go at it by situation. For instance, the Cowboys. This is hurting the team more than what CeeDee Lamb, because CeeDee Lamb realizes, listen, I am the best receiver on this team. There's no other receiver that is better than me. There's no other receiver that is as close to me when it comes to my skill set. So I have to be fairly compensated for it. It is literally just me and me alone. Nobody else. I don't have Michael Gallup. I don't have Amari Cooper. I don't have this person or that person. It's solely just me. And the Cowboys realize that guess what? They have to pay him top dollar money. There's no choice. There's no, can you take a hometown discount and can you do this and can you do that? It's none of that. Pay the man his money. The longer that this goes, the worse it's going to look like on the Cowboys and Jerry. Because Jerry realizes that in order for Dak to be successful, he needs CeeDee Lamb to be out on that field. And if CeeDee Lamb is not out on that field, oh man, you're going to have some problems. You are. Now, when we look over, for instance, who I want to do next? What I want to do next? We'll just get out. We'll get the 49ers out the way. We look at Brandon Ayuk, right? This is hurting both sides, if we're being real here. And I'll explain why. Because Brandon Ayuk is literally their best route runner and one of their best blockers when it comes to the receiver position, right? And, they need someone like that because Debo is the Swiss Army knife of the offense. He is. Let's just call it for what it is. He is the Swiss Army knife. He is someone that he's been put in a running back position. He's been put in the slot on the outside. They've used him in motions. They've used him, in jet sweeps and all those different types of things, right? Meanwhile, Brandon Ayuk is I can run this route, that route, this route, go route, slant routes, post routes, all those different types of routes, right? And, but at the same time, he's also a phenomenal blocker as well. So this is hurting, both sides because guess what? This has basically been, drawn out since the end of the Super Bowl, basically. And, there's basically been no friction. It hasn't. There's been speculations. There's been, this and that, but it's never been any real movement, right? Because there was a moment in time where he was about to get traded during the draft, actually, because The Jaguars called. The Jaguars called about him, and they were willing to give up a receiver to get him. But the 49ers said no. Okay, cool. Then you have Brandon Ayuk that, can't speak. Really can't speak. Request a trade. And once he finally did, guess what? Still haven't seen anything. Even though they have agreed in not in parameter. What am I doing? Even though they have agreed in principle with the Steelers for a trade and whatnot, they want to try to work on trying to keep him. But at the same time, it's hurting them because why? You have another player, a more impactful player that is looking for more money as well. So there's been little to no friction. There hasn't been anything. So at some point, something has to give on either side. Either Brandon Ayuk wants to go to another team, or the 49ers are just going to have to suck it up and just meet all of his demands and just give him the money. But even then, I feel like that's going to cause more friction because why? Deebo Samuel has been there every single practice, every single preseason game. He has showed up. And, if I'm the 49ers, I would rather, reward that compared to reward, bad behavior, quote unquote, when it comes to Brandon Ayuk. I'm just being honest here. And then again, it's not like I don't want no one to think that I have, beef with Brandon Ayuk or any of those different types of things. But the fact of the matter is, bro, you have been so undecided in this situation and it's drawn out so long that I feel like you have made more enemies than allies and friends in this situation. Let's just call it for what it is. It's a simple decision. Either you pick up the phone and you call your agent and you tell them, okay, I'm going to Pittsburgh or I'm going to this team or that team, and that's it. Or, okay, I'll be at the facility at 2:00. We're going to sign this deal. I'm tired of not being around my teammates. I want to win a Super Bowl. That's it. That's it. That's all you have to do. It's nothing else. They are not going to give you every single little thing that you want. Nobody gets that in a contract. Nobody does. So why in the world do you feel like you are the only person that should be getting that? Brandon Ayuk. Why? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. And now this makes you look worse. But again, what do I know? But when you look at Jamar Chase's situation, this is, to me, is hurting the player more than the team. Because why? The owner has already said, we're not talking about contracts this year, but we may revisit it next year. They've already said that. So if they've already said that, then hey, you got to take it for what it is, and you just have to keep pushing forward. That's it. Because the longer that you hold out, this is going to hurt you more. Because you have to get better and develop chemistry, again, with Joe Burrow. You have to, because there's been new players that have been added to the team, offensive linemen, other receivers and whatnot. So, there's still a lot of things that you have to do. And then not to mention, even with all of these injuries, guess what? You guys are risking an injury, a soft tissue injury, whether that be a hamstring or you're growing or your ankle or whatever the case may be, right? And the longer that this thing draws out, the worse it looks on you. It does. Not to mention, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the actual numbers, but I think he still has 2 years left on his deal. So why in the world are we doing anything? Why? Just why? I don't know. But same thing with T Higgins. I feel like this is hurting the team more than him, because he just decided, okay, I'll sign the tag and I'll play under the tag, and then after that, I'm done with the Bengals. I'm done. I haven't had no negotiations nor contract talks with him since last March. I'm done. I'm gonna play this season. We're gonna have our fun. We're gonna have our our laughs, our talks, and all those different types of things. Whatever happens with this season happens. That's his mindset. And he's there. He's practicing. He's doing his thing, right? And so this is it's That type of question is a situation to situation type of basis. It's not something where you can just group everybody into one category and say, okay, this is the problem. This is how it's affecting this or that. Like, no, each situation is different. Now, on to the final thing to talk about. Where were we at? 30 minutes? Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. Early trade predictions. Yes, I do feel like I have to put that out as your bag roll dominance. I do feel like, players like J.C. Horn and Devontae Adams and possibly Hassan Reddick will definitely be floated around, during, well, not during, or but like, this coffee is doing crazy stuff right now. Do not do decaf and do not put a whole bunch of sugar and cream into your coffee. You are going to regret it. I do feel like those three names and probably a few other names will definitely be floated around for obvious reasons, because either they want a new situation, they're trying to win, they want more money, or the team is just not going to pay them, right? Those are the type of situations where, those three names will definitely be floated around, because I truly believe the Panthers aren't going to pay J.C. Horn. I don't, but I do believe that they are definitely going to trade him. I do. I don't know what it is, but I think that they're going to trade him. I think the Raiders situation is a little bit more difficult because the way Devontae Adams' contract is structured, it's backloaded. So basically, his base salary for the next 2 years is going to skyrocket, right? As well as the dead cap hit. So even if a team offers, a first round pick, that's still a lot of money that they're going to have to tack on. And even then, can't even really give him an extension because why? He's old. He's up in age. So it's like you can't that's a situation where you would have to move a whole lot just to try to fit that contract under there. But even then, even if you was to do a restructure or something, that's still a lot of money that you have to tack on. And either way you slice it or dice it, I mean, both parties are going to be taking a significant amount of money. Either one team is going to take a lot of dead cap and probably his guarantees, or something else. So it's a very difficult situation. Even then with Hassan Reddick, that's a difficult situation because why? He's looking for money. He's looking to get paid. That's why the Eagles didn't pay him, because they couldn't afford him, because he'll be making a lot of money. So, and the Jets knew that. And, the Jets continue to stand by that they're not going to trade him. But I do believe that the longer that this holds out, I think the Jets will get desperate and be like, you know what, to hell with it. We'll just get a draft pick, flip it, and try to get something else. But, those are probably the only names I could probably think of right now. There'll probably be more, coming soon. Ooh, I forgot Amari Cooper. I think Amari Cooper might get traded as well, especially with the restructure that they did to his contract. That's a little bit more easier for a team to, to work with compared to the original structure that they had in place for his contract. So a lot of names to definitely keep your eye on as this season, starts and progress. Keep your eye out. Keep your eye out. Bagro Damas is definitely keeping his eye and his ear on the field for every little thing that I hear and know. But I'm just going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you're listening, please leave a 5-star review wherever that you listen to the Football Junkies podcast. We are on Spotify, YouTube, RSS feed, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere that you can listen to podcasts and get your daily Football Junkies fix. As always, you can follow us on YouTube, Football_Junkies Pod. Again, that's Football_Junkies Pod. You can follow us on Instagram, Football_Junkies Pod. Again, that's Football_Junkies Pod. You can follow us on TikTok, Football_Junkies Pod. I'm going to keep on saying it again until you guys know it from the top of your head. Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is not spaced. It is all together. That's right. To my YouTube people, like, share, subscribe, turn that notification bell on, leave a comment down below. And as always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys love and need. I appreciate you guys so much. We are only 2 episodes away from that 30th mark. Would not be surprised if we hit that 30th mark this week, because I do believe some resolution will come down with Brandon Ayuk. I know I said it last week and the week before, but I don't know. I think they're getting desperate at this point. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some bag alerts by the end of this week. Hopefully we have some bag alerts. But as always, peace and love. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you to all the people that have been with me on this journey. Shout out to all the junkies in Europe, Philippines, the West Coast, the East Coast, Midwest, and even in Canada. We love you. We appreciate you. And to all the future football junkies, just know you're in for a wild ride. But guess what? You're going to enjoy it. Peace and love. I'm out.